Good morning. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Stewart. Oh, I better put these on. I knew that. Today's February 9th, 2025. My name's Judy Clow, and I'm your worship associate today. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all ethnicities, ages, gender identities, and backgrounds. We're also on YouTube, hence the camera there, to be put on our email list or to find out more information about us. Google TCUUC to find our website. Note the email link to request the online Friday newsletter. If you have not yet done so, please silence your cell phones. Visitors, if you're comfortable, please step up to the microphone, which is right here, and introduce yourself. This makes it possible for the people attending on YouTube to hear you.
My name is Ed Carlin. This is my wife. We're from Arizona and vacationing for a short period of time. Thank you for inviting us. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Don't have anybody else at the moment? Oh, I gotta grab my announcements. You can find announcements in our bulletin this morning. There's all kinds of things. I don't know if there's anything special. What we usually announce our first and third Tuesdays. There's a brown bag lunch at Poppleton Park, which is right down the street, Poppleton Creek Park, at noontime Tuesdays, but not this week. And there's a meditation gathering every Sunday at 10. Taking turns between Karen Olish and Ken Teixeira. So thank you. After the service, we'll have coffee and cookies in the social hall, which is right across the way. And thank you to those who helped with the service. Sandra Craig is accompanying us for the hymns. And we have, John Morn, brought some of the choir with him, or met some of the choir here. So we have a new choir, which is wonderful, who will help us sing the hymns and other things. Our greeters were Kitty Rowell and Janet Grote. Our tech elf is Karina, and her backups, Karina Poloni. Her backups are Rachel Valentino, Stan, and Alistair Forrester. The hospitality team is Joanne Leone, Marguerite Gregory, who's here somewhere. She's always here. Jackie Buckley is one of our helpers as well. This morning, the sermon will be spoken by Scott Gledhill, who is sitting back here. He's one of the Snowbird members, and Bob will introduce him before this service, the sermon. No prelude.
Okay, let's proceed with lighting.
Okay. This chalice lighting is called Live Your Divinity by Sandra Matucci. The light manifests itself from within, projecting what appears invisible, yet transforms the darkness for vast miles. Cast your light. Let no one extinguish your flame. Live your divinity, even if laughed at, mocked, or belittled. Trust the fire that dwells in you. Set the world ablaze with love. Only you can, from the infinite beam inside your soul. Honoring Martin Luther King, Jr. The opening words are from A Comfort of Crows, A Backyard Year by Margaret Renkel. I treasure every iridescent green bee waking to feed on the first vanishing bloodroot flower, the first ephemeral spring beauty, the first woodland violet, and cutleaf toothwort. Soon there will be trilliums and trout lilies too. Any day now, toadshade trilliums and trout lilies. If you tell me I don't deserve this joy, you are telling me nothing I don't already know. From the first hominid to raise up on bare feet and stumble across a field of blooming grass, we have been burning this world down. I know that. I am in love with the mild light of the coming springtime anyway, with the shivering joy of the coming springtime, with all the beguiling creatures of the coming springtime. Come to the woods and stand with me in the sunshine beneath the trees. Watch the bluebirds diving for insects. Watch them peeking into the nest holes the woodpeckers carved out years ago. Listen to the cry of the woodpeckers in the echoing woods. Let it lift your heart. Let it still your busy hands and feet, and let it still your worried mind. Listen with everything you are, with all you are. Listen for the hum and flutter of the waking world. The upland chorus frogs are singing. It is a song full of full-throated promise. It's beginning again. It's all beginning again. Our first hymn is number 205, Amazing Grace. let us recite our affirmation, speaking the first verse and singing the second. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Well, let's have some singing choir.
Okay, good. Below the skies, let faith and hope and love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung from every land by every tongue.
I just want to mention that in my previous career as a Methodist minister in the New York area, and in my years down here in this congregation, I've had people tell me they would not sing Amazing Grace because they choke on the line, "Saved a wretch like me." So I had to say, well, that's fine. But I also have to say that more than once in my life, I have felt like a wretch and hoped that something would save me. So I will sing it, but only with the cover of others around me singing it. The reading is 466 by Vincent Silliman. What's that? Okay. Is that the one you picked? Yes. 466, yeah. I want to be sure I got that right. All right, we'll read this responsively. Let religion be to us life and joy. Let it be a voice that renews challenge to the best we have and may be. Let it be a call to generous action. Let religion be to us a dissatisfaction with things that are, which bids us serve more eagerly the true and right. Let it be the sorrow that opens for us the way of sympathy, understanding, and service to suffering humanity. Let religion be to us the wonder and lure of that which is only partly known and understood, an eye that glories in nature's majesty and beauty, and a heart that rejoices in deeds of kindness and of courage. Let religion be to us security and serenity because of its truth and beauty, and because of the enduring worth and power of the loyalties which it engenders. Let it be to us hope and purpose, and a discovering of opportunities to express our best through daily tasks. Religion uniting us with all that is admirable in human beings everywhere. Now is our time of sharing matters of joy and sorrow. Would you all let your minds just wander somewhere while I have a brief conversation with Sandy? Can you do 123? Can you play that? Okay. The conference is over. Let's go back to where we were. Joys and sorrows. We invite you to share them in the hope that you know as you do, you are heard and supported. That's why we invite you. We ask that they be brief and personal, not announcements, you know what I mean. Let me start with those I know about. We hold close to our hearts Bill Falk as he is in the hospice care. I'm not sure what it's called. Is it the Treasure Coast Hospice off Runkey? He's got a much bigger room. It's good for his family that are staying over with him. And we just wish for him the best, not knowing what that can be, but knowing that he's not there. So anyhow, Bill, we love you, and we just want the best for you. We're saying family only to visit because talking tires him, and even in my visit yesterday, after 10 or 15, I had the feeling I was tiring him. So I don't want that. And he knows that we're caring and loving toward him, and he wants us to convey his back to us. Bill Falk, and Geraldine too, needs all the support and love we can send her way. I had a message from Ken Texera that he's watching and would say to you if he could, so I'm saying for him, his knee is working well. He's glad for that. He's glad for the knee repair. He's a tad sorrow that it hurts a bit, but hang in there, Ken. You're a young man, and that will go away. For that, we're glad to hear that he's through it and going to be getting better. He also asked me to pass on to you that his divorcing is going well, that he and Donna will be like brother and sister for the rest of their lives, and we wish them all the well, of course. Well, I can't think of anybody else now. Who else has something of a joy or sorrow nature to come up and share? Your sister first, and then you. This is older to younger, I guess, right?
I'm Judith, and this week we had a spontaneous luncheon for Deb Harris, a longtime friend, and it was wonderful to see her, and I'm hoping that she finds what she is looking for in Panama.
Yes, Deb is down to Panama now, looking for a place where she and Francisco can relocate safely. So that seems to be in the works, to be happening in the next couple of months. And she's offered to do a presentation to us via Zoom. I'm sure she has all kinds of free time to put that together. But she's spoken from here before, and my hope is when she does have moments, she will speak to us from afar. We wish her and Francisco the best. Most of you, some of you know, she lived in Stewart a long time, very active here. They went to Connecticut thinking they were safe up there. They married, but they don't have the feeling of being safe up there. So they're on their way to Panama soon. We wish them the best. Tia.
Good morning. I also was going to mention Deb, but it's a sorrow-joy thing because we will miss her, but we will know they will be safer. There's a kind of a joyful, sorrowful remembering from the reading this morning. I really missed the Northeast in the spring with the trilliums and the jack-in-the-pulpits and the lilies of the valleys and all the other flowering things that we don't get down here when we have no seasons. So that was a lovely reading.
Margaret Rankle is always good.
Yes. And I have a joyful update that I communicated with Pat Tosney. She had her second major surgery this week, and she's recovering from it well and is just tired, but recovering well.
Yes.
I'm Judy Bajaris, and I want to talk about joys of some friendships. And the joy of being friends with Bill and Geraldine, and the sorrow of what they've been having to deal with. And the other friendships are Scott Gledhill and Joanne Calderon, who are friends from Maryland, and it's such a joy the last few years that they are down here in Florida during this summer, and so we get to hang out together. True joy.
Yeah, I think if they join us as members while they're down here, you get a toaster for that.
I want to thank Judy for saying something about the choir. I can't take credit for this. I want to thank, actually, it's a great joy that Jim has motivated and helped organize us, Jim Rose, and we really appreciate it. And it's such a wonderful surprise to have Sandy Craig joining us. And so this is not an announcement, it's an invitation. Anybody who wants to join us Wednesdays at 7 o'clock.
Thank you,
here.
John. Thank you very much.
Good morning, I'm Brenda. I have a joy. I am seeing my grandsons for the first time in a year today. They're coming to my house for lunch, so I am overjoyed.
Great. Anyone else? Then we always move one for people that, did you want to say something? No. We always move one for people that we don't mention out loud, but we know that we all carry people in our minds and hearts that we want the best for. The reading, kind of a pastoral meditation, is from the back of the hymnal. I've kind of lost it. Give me just a minute. I have a reading. I know I have a reading. Well, maybe I've lost it in more senses than one. Anyhow, the reading I'm going to use is entitled, well, I guess this is it, A Litany of Atonement. A Litany of Atonement, in the back of the hymnal, written by Robert Eller Isaacs. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For losing sight of our unity, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. Now, all that by Robert Eller Isaacs. And I want to note the emphasis on forgiving self. Note the emphasis on forgiving others. Note the affirmation that we can begin again in love. And now, moments of silence. And now our Spirit of Life 123. We hum it once, and then we sing it standing or sitting, whichever you prefer. Spirit of Life 123. And the Treasure Coast Tabernacle Choir. We always hope that people who come here will. Did you want to say something? I do. Didn't you say I do a long time ago? Go ahead.
I did. Not an announcement, just a joy to sing with the choir.
Good. We hope that people experience joy and generosity here. And I have to keep telling you, we need you to return some of your generosity to us so that we may continue. And I know I have 2 willing volunteers. I think I do. I hope I do. Good. 2 Johns. We'll take everybody's money, you can be sure. It was a delight for me when Scott and Joanne got back here for their time down here, and he approached me and said, I decided to say yes to your question. And of course, the question was put to him last April, I think, when I learned that he graduated from Harvard Divinity School. And you know what the question was? And when will you have a sermon for us? So he reminded me that that was the question, and his answer would be yes. So I'm really glad to have him with us this morning, sharing his thoughts and experiences. When I've read his bio, I realized, well, I don't think you've not been ordained by any denomination, have you? No. Which is smart, because he got to do works of ministry without the aggravation, not here, but in most churches, pastoring is a mixed blessing. But here it's almost totally unmixed. Anyhow, I'm delighted to have him share with us what he's gleaned on his journey. He has found ministry, and he shares some of that with us this morning. Let's welcome Scott Gledhill.
Good morning. To focus, I've chosen a poem written by Adiji Ishola, who is the founder of the Unitarian Brotherhood in Lagos, Nigeria. Words that we hold tight won't let us go. Paths we don't follow will haunt us so. What will undo us is not our friend. Show us, O Spirit, how to befriend. Show us how to forgive to all who live. Show us forgiveness so that we may live. To speak of loving is not to love. Lies move among us, below, above. When we are raging, needing to mend, show us, O Spirit, how to befriend. When love is doubtful, choice is not clear, we turn to worship to cast out fear. Teach us forgiveness, make love our end. Show us, O Spirit, how to befriend. Those are also the lyrics of hymn 179. I chose not to sing it. It's a Yoruba traditional tune. I think that's a little stretch for the choir at this point. Bob, thank you for the introduction. Being in what I consider Bob's pulpit is a high honor, and I'm grateful to be here. First, I'd like to thank each of you individually and collectively for providing a spiritual home for Joanne and myself while we are here in Florida. Our time here has been important to us, and we look forward to each and every Sunday. Now, adjust our expectations a bit here. I'm not much of a preacher. My ministry has always been more focused on doing rather than saying. However, as Joanne can tell you, and I think it would be confirmed by John Cook, Judy Bajoris, Ed and Kate Carlin, and my friends everywhere, I am a pretty good storyteller. If you want to get Joanne started, just ask about my 12-inch fish story. As Unitarians, we often look outside at the bigger picture. What are the big social justice issues? How can peace be created? A traditional UU sermon is looking out at the world. And in contrast, our readings are often looking inside ourselves. In particular, we often include Buddhist scripture and Buddhist philosophy in our programs. Our hymns offer instructions on how to move forward in life. Spirit of Life is particularly that for me. So when you hear my bass voice booming out the lyrics, know that I'm giving myself instructions, an order on how to move forward in a challenging world. But today I want to look inward at a smaller, more personal issue. I believe attention to the smaller issues prepares us to address the bigger issues. The title of the sermon is I Hear You, but I'm going to quit listening. And like most things I have to say, it will start with a story. I sat next to my mother in church as a small child, and all the way up until I became her adult caregiver. In all the years I sat next to her, she never sang a note. On a number of occasions, I asked Mom, why don't you sing? Her answer was she couldn't sing. Even on the occasions when the congregation was told to sing, even if you couldn't, and just make a joyful noise, Mom would remain silent. Fast forward 7 years ago. Mom is now 98 years old and in a memory care unit as she is suffering from Lewy body's dementia. The youth group of our church up north has a tradition of visiting shut-ins and singing Christmas carols. So I asked them to come to the assisted living facility and do a short concert. First, they performed for the general members of the assisted living community. Then they went to the memory care unit. The members of that community gathered, and the youth group began to sing. It was a remarkable and wonderful experience. It's one that Judy Robbins shared with us not too long ago, of how music reaches people. All of the residents began to sing along. Many of them seldom, if ever, said a word. What a wonderful gift those young people brought with them. Among those singing was my mother. I was amazed that she was singing. And second, by the beauty of her sweet voice. After the program concluded, I had to talk with Mom about why she had chosen to sing that day. So, Mom, you have a beautiful voice. And she sweetly smiled and thanked me for the compliment. Next, I reminded her that she had never sung before. And she responded, oh yes, that was true. So, Mom, why had you never sung before? Her answer, well, my kindergarten teacher said I had a horrible voice and should never sing, and I never did. My response was that was such an awful thing to say. Next, she shocked me even more and said the kindergarten teacher told her sister the same thing, and her sister never sang again. How sad. These two women lived for more than 90 years after being told they couldn't sing and never did so. So the next question that came to my mind was, why, after all these years, did you decide to sing today? Mom's response, well, I don't think she can do anything to me now. Surely she must be dead. Wow. Stunning. Especially if you knew my mother. She came from a small island of fishermen off the coast of Maine with a two-room school. They'll never mention one, she'll let you know it was two. And we measured diversity on the island by whether you were a first or second cousin. She became a nurse and broke ground by becoming an early nurse practitioner and managing a healthcare facility. She grew to know and love all people, a remarkable source of advice, encouragement, and frequently sought out as an advisor, counselor, and guide. Yet, for 90 years, she was deprived herself and everyone else of her sweet voice. Need a moment, because when I think about it, I always become a bit emotional that I had that one special opportunity that my father and sisters never had. They certainly deserved that joy. So, what voices are we listening to that should be ignored? How do we bring ourselves to ignore those voices? What does it take to ignore the voices that are limiting who we are and who we can be? I think the first step is to identify the voices that place limits on who we are and how we perceive ourselves. The sources of those voices are frequently from those who had formational places in our growing up and are continuing to grow. One of the voices is that of my father, who offered plenty of instruction, but sometimes veered into hypercritical. There are others as well, and we'll deal with all of them momentarily. I'll posit that there are a number of ways of dealing with limiting voices in our heads, and that we may travel various routes, and in fact, I believe most of us will have to use multiple methods and follow several different approaches. So what I'm suggesting is a way to silence the voices we're no longer going to listen to. I've been told, especially by my mother, oh, just let it go. Well, the magic route of just letting it go took too long to work for her. Meditation is a successful method for letting go, but first we need to identify that which needs to be let go of. Feeling free to stop listening to me and reach back to those voices you should no longer listen to. And I'll stop talking for a moment. I hope some of you identified a voice or two, and hopefully not an entire chorus. If you didn't identify any voices, be patient. They're out there. They'll find you. Sometimes we need something to trigger our recognition that we need to stop listening. And as the Christmas carols triggered my mother, my personal trigger also happened. In my case, the trigger was a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer and the prognosis of a few months to live. Anticipating death is quite the wake-up call. And I'm going to unpack that. But first, besides my anecdotal evidence, there's some pretty good science behind how negative comments can impact us. A paper in the library of the National Institutes of Health gives a lot of background on this topic, and I'll happily share it with anyone who's interested, with the warning, it's very dry stuff. The paper reviews several studies on the impact of negative comments. It also points out that it's extremely difficult to document the impact of positive comments. My best advice on positive comments and negative feedback came from a boss mentor who suggested I needed to hand out 8 attaboys for every negative comment. I'm not sure that is actually the right ratio. As an executive manager, I had to do employee reviews. I always started a review by asking what the employee got from the previous review. More often than not, the answer focused on the areas the employee was asked to improve upon. This was true even though most of the time the employee had in fact improved and the improvement had been acknowledged on more than one occasion. If I was doing my job correctly, the employee would comment on how they used the positive feedback for further growth. Okay, back to my story. Got a couple of months to live, and my goal is to die without anger, especially the anger at limitations placed upon me. A classmate from seminary was giving a guest sermon at my church during the time I was going through the process of being diagnosed. It's not just walk in the doctor's office and they do it. No, not quite. His topic was forgiveness, which is hardly surprising, since we both had the opportunity to meet and hear the ultimate reconcilers and forgivers, Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. After my diagnosis was complete, I sought out Russ for some counseling. He wasn't sure which sermon I was referring to, but agreed to meet with me. And this is what came of our collaboration. Step 1, identify the hurt that's creating anger. Step 2, identify the words and source that wounded. Step 3, realize that each and every one of us wants to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And we all fail. This is worth repeating. Everyone wants to be the best version of themselves that they can be, and everyone occasionally fails. Step 4, reframe your relationship to that person who wounded you. It doesn't matter whether the wound was intentional or accidental. It doesn't matter if the person is a saint or a venal corruption of a human being. It doesn't matter if the wound is fresh or decades old. It doesn't matter if the wound was inflicted with rage or just an unfortunate misstatement. What matters is that we understand that the other could only be who they were at that moment. Let me say it another way. Whether true or false, whether delivered in love or rage, whether new or old, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. What matters is that what we're going to do with it. Take hold of it. Step 5. Decide we're going to get rid of the negative voices that limit us. Step 6. Choose your tool or weapon to liberate you from that which is limiting your love of all that is before us. You may choose your own tool or weapon of liberation. I chose forgiveness. Forgiveness may be the most undervalued weapon there is. The American Psychological Association defines forgiveness as: forgiveness involves willfully putting aside feelings of resentment towards someone who has committed a wrong, been unfair or hurtful, or otherwise harmed you in some way. Forgiveness is not merely accepting what happened or ceasing to be angry. Rather, it involves a voluntary transformation of your feelings, attitudes, and behavior so that you are no longer dominated by the resentment and can express compassion, generosity, or the like towards the person who wronged you. When someone hurts you, it can feel justifiable or even satisfying to hold a grudge. But psychologists have found that forgiveness, when done right, can lead to better mental health, emotional, and even physical health for the forgiver. Robert Enright of the International Forgiveness Institute and the University of Wisconsin-Madison is a great source on forgiveness. And if you want further, look him up. The final step, there is a final step, is practice of forgiveness. And this is all about us, the individual. It does not matter whether the person being forgiven is willing to hear your forgiveness of them. It doesn't matter if the person is alive or dead. What matters is that you forgive them and in the process liberate yourself from the limitations others have put upon you. And yes, it is hard work. Oh, by the way, it's not a once and done. It's more like brushing your teeth. Daily hygiene gives much better results than benign neglect. I am truly blessed to have been liberated by a deadly disease. Today, I put a hyphen in that word, dis-ease. Let us all be free of dis-ease. The only part of my mother's story that I regret is that she couldn't have forgiven her kindergarten teacher before she was 98 years old. Let us all practice the mental hygiene of forgiveness. May it be so. Amen.
.323, break not the circle. be seated. My thanks to Scott and reminder that we continue our time together in the next building room for coffee and snacks. Hope you'll stay.
For our closing words today, I bring you a benediction from the book of Matthew. As you have been forgiven, now go into the world that needs your forgiving. Healing touch. Bring peace and hope to others, sharing God's love with them. Amen.
We're used to a postlude. Do you want to just hum something together? We're missing our postlude person, so let's just go on and continue our fellowship in the other room. But hum if you want.